Hello and welcome. This is A Slice of New York. I'm Mike Gilliam. New York is one of the cultural capitals of the world, and all of our wonderful museums and exhibits are a part of that rich cultural offering. But when we think of museums, we often think of the institutions that have been around for decades. On this slice, we're going to go in a different direction and look at some of the museums that are spread out across the 5 boroughs. So let's get to it. Let's start our museum crawl with THC NYC, the Cannabis Museum in the heart of Soho. A quick look inside and you can tell that THC NYC is a lot different than traditional museums.
We wanted to open a cannabis museum because there wasn't a place to celebrate cannabis that was not a store. It's like you've got dispensaries where you can go buy it. You've got kind of your little smoke shops where you get your accessories and things to do, but there was never a place dedicated to destigmatizing, educating, and just exploring cannabis and teaching and learning more about it.
Open for about a year, it's located in a 5-story building at the corner of Broadway and Howard in Soho. At night, it glows with an appropriate green hue. Inside, there's lots to see. We asked General Manager Maggie Ste.Marie to show us around. On the 5th floor, there's art.
So currently I'm standing under The Smoke by Jason Krugman, which is one of many art installations we have here at the House of Cannabis. This one is specifically meant to look like smoke that's being exhaled.
There's a lot of art sprinkled throughout the building, but the House of Cannabis is more than artwork. They feature different ways of looking at the plant.
This is the Microverse, curated with photos by Candid Kush, as we call him, Chris Romaine, featuring the plant in macro photography, where you can see all of the images look a little bit alien-like, very glooby, globby, but highlights the plant in a way that you really don't see often, because this is not the same as what it looks like when you pull it out of a bag.
And of course, they also have live plants.
So these are the ladies of THC, if you will, are fantastic hemp plants. And hemp is the same as the cannabis plant, it just has a lower THC quantity to it.
In addition to the agriculture floor, the museum plans to offer classes.
So we're actually currently building out classes to teach people how to grow, how to start growing. It is so much more than just putting a seed in some soil and giving it water every day. They need specific nutrients and the light needs to be perfect. The electricity in the water is specific. It's the pH, all of it. And it's daunting.
The founders of THC NYC also wanted to include a look at the impact of cannabis on society.
Here we are in the Forum, which is partnered with the Drug Policy Alliance to talk about the social justice issues surrounding cannabis and cannabis convictions and how they can impact families, individuals, schools, all of it.
And you can hear the various stories in a unique way.
When you're in the room first, you hear all of them overlapping each other, but when you go and you stand underneath one of these, you really only hear the story that's coming from right in front of you.
On a lighter note, there are a total of 10 experiences, like music.
That moves into what we call the Euphorium, which is a music-dedicated room featuring a giant turntable, and there's a playlist that's about 6 minutes long, featuring all sorts of different genres, all inspired by cannabis, artists who love cannabis or are writing about cannabis, and it mashes up with the lights in the room, so it's really like a laser light show for you while you're on this giant turntable.
You can purchase cannabis from an on-site dispensary, and there are areas to enjoy a smoke. They even offer a chance to take in the scents of cannabis, like this one, the scent of creativity. Maggie says she wants to see THC NYC spark honest conversation about cannabis.
My hope would be that our guests leave with something that they didn't know about cannabis before they came here, and that their outlook has changed a little bit.
So, times are a-changing on the museum front. Pretty cool place. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue our museum crawl with some that you may not have heard of. And we have some great guests. Stay with us. This is A Slice of New York. Welcome back. I'm Mike Gilliam. Museums are a huge slice of life in New York. We just showed you the Cannabis Museum, and there are many more that you may not have heard of or forgotten about to enjoy if you venture away from Museum Row. Joining me is Concetta Bencivenga, director of the New York Transit Museum in Brooklyn. Also joining us is Christopher Bromson, executive director of the AKC Museum of the Dog and a Baruch College graduate. And finally, a friend of the show, Tim Keogh, history professor at Queensborough Community College, is here. Chris, let's start with you. What the heck is a Museum of the Dog?
Well, Mike, I like to say it's one of New York City's best kept secrets. So the Museum of the Dog is on 40th and Park, and we are the largest collection in the country, if not the world, of dog-related and dog-focused art. We have a collection of over 1,700 pieces. We have 4 different interactive exhibitions to really allow people to engage with our four-legged friends, learn about their history, and really kind of get in there with the dogs.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about you have all of these different pieces there, what types of pieces are you talking about?
It really runs the gamut. We have huge, really large format paintings from the 19th century that really kind of hold the history of what dogs have been in society. What we hope to do in the museum is really celebrate the connection between humans and canines and how that has shifted and evolved and looked throughout different phases in history. We have photographs, we have a large collection of ceramics, different sculptures, big bronzes, and a lot of interactive tables to learn about the specific dog breeds that are sanctioned by the AKC, about 212 different dog breeds that there are to learn about.
What kind of led to its creation?
Well, the AKC has been around for hundreds of years and has really kind of been the leading protector and, supporter of purebred dogs. Over those years, since the 1800s, the AKC amassed a huge collection of really fine pieces of art through donations and purchases and all sorts of different historical artifacts. And so it became really clear in 1982 that it was time to share that with the public. It didn't just belong in the offices and the halls of the American Kennel Club. We really needed to share it with the public and allow people to come and engage with this history and with all of these wonderful, joyful things that dogs bring to society.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's at least one dog owner out there saying, "Can I bring my dog?"
Yeah, well, not alone. That person is certainly not alone. So while we're not open to dogs always, we have a lot of specific hours where dogs and their humans are welcome to join us. So every other Friday night, we run a program called Furry Friday, where people are welcome to come view the museum and engage in special programming with their pups. All of that information is on our website, museumofthedog.org, but it is so much fun. We typically get about 50 humans and dogs walking through the museum and, engaging in arts and crafts and taking advantage of the different interactive exhibitions.
Yeah, that sounds kind of cool. So what kind of stuff
fun.
are they actually doing? You say arts and crafts?
Sure. Sometimes we have, we'll bring in a photographer to do staged portraits with one's pet. Sometimes it's making different dog treats or making, portraits of one's pets with, macaroni or different kinds of mosaic tools and things like that. But it's a really wonderful place to be with your dog. There are so few places in New York that you really get to be with your dog and experience things together. We have a number of new programs that have really engaged the public. Everything from young children with story time with authors who've written books about dogs for kids. We have a number of different educational events. Every month we bring in a different specific dog breed and live examples of that breed to allow people to really get to know different breeds of dogs. We just had Newfoundlands last month. It's my own dog is a Newfoundland. And in May we'll have Italian Greyhounds, which should be a really fascinating breed for people to come and engage with. Pet the dog, ask questions about how they behave, find a breeder if that's something that they're interested in, but learn about all the things that make that breed special.
Tim, had you heard about this museum?
I had never heard about it before. This is completely new. And what's amazing about what you described is that it's not just, artifacts and historical stuff, but it is live dogs.
Sounds very, very cool. Absolutely. Concetta, let's talk transit a little bit. That museum has been in Brooklyn for many, many years, but a lot of people don't venture out. What's new and exciting there now?
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. We have been in downtown Brooklyn for almost 50 years, which is kind of crazy. We were started in 1976, and we were only ever supposed to be open for 3 months, from July 4th to Labor Day as part of the bicentennial celebration for New York City. But thankfully, New Yorkers fell in love with the museum, and so we've been an anchor institution in Brooklyn ever since. And there's a lot going on at the museum. Basically, in a nutshell, the Transit Museum tells you that you experience New York the way you do because of transit. You just don't know it. Whether that's going to Queens and understanding that Queens is Queens because of the 7 train, or being in the Bronx and understanding how much of the Bronx was impacted by the subway and then ultimately Metro North, and other sort of ways that transportation has really made place in New York. And those are the stories that we tell here. So we tell the stories past, present, and future. Right now, we've got a great, 2 great new exhibits, which sort of indicate that. In Brooklyn, in the main museum proper, which is a 1936 decommissioned subway with over 100 years of historical subway cars on display every day. We have a new exhibit that's opened up, which is a partnership with something called Pure Vision Arts. And Pure Vision Arts is an arts collective based here in Manhattan, over in Chelsea. And all of those artists identify as being autistic. So they're on the autism spectrum. They're passionate about transit, and they've all curated and commissioned work that is on display for the next year at our location in downtown Brooklyn.
You've kind of led me to my next question, and that is, a lot of people may not have been to that museum yet. Can you kind of describe what it looks like there, what you would see if you were to visit?
Sure. Sometimes people are chagrined that they've never been there, and I say that is totally fine, because when you go to the Met, you know what you're going to get, right? But I guarantee you, for people that have never been to the Transit Museum, when you leave, you're going to say, that place was awesome, and I had no idea. So we love when people say, you know, not been yet, but we want you to come visit. What you'll experience is, it's the first stop in Brooklyn on the 4-5, so you just have to go one stop into Brooklyn to Borough Hall. It's around the corner. It is a 1936 decommissioned subway station that goes the entire length of a city block. And we basically have a mezzanine level where we do changing exhibits, and we talk about the subway history, surface transportation history, and then on the platform level, you will see over 100 years of subway car history, including the oldest car in our collection, which is 120 years old, and it's a wooden-bodied subway car.
Are there moving trains?
So, interestingly, amazing question. We are one of the very few museums on the planet that has rolling stock, that's what you call subway cars and buses, that actually operate on their originally intended lines. And so one of the great things about the Transit Museum is every so often, if you can't make it to Brooklyn, we will bring the museum to you. We have a parade of trains over down in Brighton Beach where we'll take our collection and put them out in the system. We have a bus festival where you can see our vintage bus fleet, and then periodically over the course of the year, around the holiday time, for example, we run our nostalgia trains as well.
Okay. Now, I'm one of those guys who rides the trains, and I go, I wonder what it would be like to actually drive this thing. You know, what would that be like? Is there a way to kind of get a feel for that sort of thing if you visit the museum?
So no, the motorman's cabs are not really open.
Okay.
But I'd say yes and no. You can experience what it was like to sort of be in the trains. One of the best things about the Transit Museum is that it really does afford you this visceral experience. You step into the subway car and it's like stepping back in time. So you can imagine what it must have been like to be a train operator or a conductor in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And it's really special. And then through the exhibits, we do try and tell you what it was like to work in and create the system over the course of more than 100 years.
What about the Yankee Clipper?
The Yankee nostalgia train that we do for opening day. Well, I'm a Mets fan, but that's okay. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You had to get that in there, didn't you?
I am a Mets fan. But we are so lucky to have a great partnership with our colleagues at New York City Transit. And so every year on Yankee opening day, we run a nostalgia train, which is a 1917 configuration of a train car that's called a low V. And those trains were in service up to Yankee Stadium in the 19-teens and 20s. And so we take it out, and that's the way that the Transit Museum helps the Yankees herald the beginning of their season. It's a lot of fun.
Cool, cool. When I first mentioned that we were going to be doing like trains at the Transit Museum, Tim went off, okay? He loves the Transit Museum. What makes it so special to you?
Well, it's not so much that I love the Transit Museum. I do love it, but my son is obsessed with trains. And what's great about the museum, as Concetta said, is that it's it doesn't feel like a museum. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, it doesn't, the exhibits are there and that's important, but it's so interactive. The subway station, it's a subway station, but you have that freedom. The kids can run around, they can, go into the subway cars and sit there. And how many trains are actually down there?
So over 20 on display, yeah. So we have two different platforms, and one has the number trains, and then the other has all the letter trains. And so there's over 20 train cars on display.
We've got lots more to visit on our museum crawl. I want to thank Christopher Bromson, the executive director of the AKC Museum of the Dog, and Concetta Bencivenga from the New York Transit Museum in Brooklyn for joining us. Tim's going to stick around. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have more on this Slice of New York museum crawl. There are so many different types of museums that there's something for everyone. There's a museum about sex. The goal? To preserve and present the history, evolution, and cultural significance of human sexuality. There's also a spy-themed interactive experience and museum with spy gadgets and historic artifacts in the heart of Manhattan. Joining me is Ariel Plotek, the chief curator of the Museum of Sex. Next to Ariel is Shelly Kramer, the Director of Operations at Spyscape, and Tim Keogh from Queensborough Community College is still with us. Ariel, I'll start with you. The Museum of Sex has been around for about 20 years. Tell me a little bit about it and why it's there, what it's all about.
Well, it started off in the same building that it occupies now on Fifth Avenue, but it started off, as you say, 21 years ago, modestly. It was on one floor. It really focused on one kind of exhibition. We worked with artists, and we worked with academics and experts of different kinds, organizing what were really sort of thought-provoking exhibitions. And we've grown, especially in 2019, when the museum became something more than just those exhibitions. We inaugurated Super Funland, Journey into the Erotic Carnival, which is a sort of immersive, interactive experience which really traces the history of the carnival from the time of the Roman bacchanals, and that proved to be tremendously popular.
When I say Museum of Sex, or I think about Museum of Sex, and I think a lot of other people would think the same thing, they would wonder, well, is this a racy sort of thing? Is it porn? Are we talking about porn here?
Well, that's a good question, and there's an exhibition right now that's called Porno Chic. But what's interesting about it is that it looks at an aesthetic, let's say, that comes from the world of porn and that kind of XXX entertainment.
What's the target audience?
Well, I mean, we're really hoping to attract everyone from more traditional art museum goers to people who are just out for a night to have fun, sometimes with friends, sometimes date nights, a lot of birthdays. And a lot of our visitors are in their 20s and 30s. It's very diverse, it's very queer. It's the audience that more traditional museums are trying so hard to bring in and really struggle to speak to, is the audience that the Museum of Sex has just sort of grown to really to connect with. You don't have to decide between Museum Mile and a collection like the Met or having a good time. You can really do both under one roof.
Okay, and you have to be 18 years old, so
You do.
Tim cannot bring the kids.
No.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, Shelly, let's talk about Spyscape. What's that all about?
So Spyscape is actually a brand of two different museums. So we have Spy HQ, which is going through the history of spying, where we do interactives and we have some artifacts. And then we also have Spy Games, which is new. It's still in beta testing. This is for groups, so you cannot go individually, whereas Spy HQ, you can go on your own. And this is actually developed by some former special ops operatives. And the great thing about Spyscape is, as a brand, we do use people in the field who are former agents of some sort, either MI6 or with the US CIA, FBI, to develop everything that we're doing.
I kind of wanted to ask you about that because I'm kind of a buff for that sort of thing. I love anything spies, from the news stories that I covered back in the day to like the things that I watch on TV and the movies and stuff. Would a guy like me be satiated by what I see at Spyscape?
Yes, because there is like that. It's great for conversation starters, I'll say, because let's say you're going by yourself or with a friend. There's enough things for you to recognize throughout history to really pique your interest, but at the same time, what you're really doing is developing a profile about yourself. So as you go through each of the galleries, you're doing some physical interactives, you're answering some questions on our question stations to assess your risk. Are you a cold risk taker, a hot risk taker? How much empathy do you show? All of those skills, either physical and mental, develop what kind of spy you would be. So you're going to figure out one of 10 different spy roles that is personalized to you.
Mm-hmm. Are there other interactive things as well?
So each of the galleries has a different interactive. So the first one will be encryption, where you're deciding how you decrypt messages. The next one is lie detection and deception, which is really great for dates. They love that one. Then we go into surveillance, which is going to test your visual skills. And the last one, which is what Spy Games is based off, which is our special ops challenge, which is lasers. So you're going to go under and above and dodge different laser beams. Mm-hmm. And even though we were very much for families, up through, I would say even like 75. We've had, age 75, 80 go through, and they'll do the spy, like the laser tunnels, and they're like, oh my gosh, that was so fun. So it's a really great connection point for all ages.
Okay. What's the coolest thing at Spyscape?
Ooh, it really depends on what you're into. I will say the fan favorite is definitely the laser tunnels, which is why Spy Games is developed off that. I really like the first gallery, which is our World War II gallery, which talks a lot about encrypting messages, and we have the encryption challenge. We also have a replica of a bomb, which is what we used in World War II to basically intercept all the U-boats and really win the war. So,
very cool.
Yeah.
Tim, let's talk about some other museums. Another special place here in Manhattan is the Jackie Robinson Museum. Talk to me about that a little bit.
What's interesting about the Jackie Robinson Museum is that it's not just about baseball. In fact, it's actually the first museum we have in New York for civil rights, the civil rights movement. Mm-hmm. And it focuses on Jackie Robinson's upbringing, his military service, and also his activism. After all, they have a whole exhibit on Jackie Robinson. He actually spoke at the House Un-American Activities Committee, and he spoke against communism and also against Jim Crow, and he linked them both as being anti-democratic, and they have the documents about that. They talk about he went to the March on Washington and Job Done Freedom. He was there. They have information on that. And of course, they do have plenty of stuff about his time at the Brooklyn Dodgers, obviously.
They also have films there as well, right?
Yeah, because he was a movie star. And it's amazing, not only his movies, but they have basically, there was all this merchandise around Jackie Robinson. I mean, we're talking comic books, obviously baseball cards, movie posters, films, and baseball bats and all, and the kind of things that were all around Jackie Robinson. He was a star in so many ways. The Babe Ruth of the 1950s in many ways. So it's a really great museum for kind of baseball, but also civil rights, which I think we oftentimes don't associate. With Jackie Robinson, it's about baseball and breaking through in baseball, but he did so much more beyond that.
He was very much involved in civil rights and that struggle, for sure. Let's go back over to Queens, Louis Armstrong Museum, or Louis Armstrong House, I believe it's called.
Yeah, so if you're one of those people that likes HGTV or trolls Zillow and looking at cool houses, the Louis Armstrong House is amazing. It's a time capsule from the 1950s and 60s. It has a turquoise kitchen. It has wallpaper everywhere. Has a tube television that's like 12 inches big, but also it's a gold-plated bathroom, which is amazing. And what's incredible about it is how clean it is. And it's shocking. How do the Armstrongs keep it so clean? But it makes sense when you know that Louis Armstrong is on the road for 300 days a year. He's barely there. But it's cute. It's a small house, and it's kind of one of those questions is, a world-famous musician, what is he doing in Corona? And the reason was because, number one, it was a neighborhood where middle-class, aspiring black middle-class, New Yorkers could get a house and a yard, and it was unassuming. And Louis Armstrong was one of those kind of unassuming stars. And he liked it because not only because he liked the house, and he talked about how he didn't like the front of the house much, the outside, but he loved the inside, obviously. But more importantly, he liked the neighborhood, and he was very, very popular in the neighborhood. He invited people over for dinner, and children. He used to play music for them outside, the children in the neighborhood. Very much a local person. And so the museum and the house really kind of represents his home, the neighborhood, but also, of course, it has trumpet lessons and events. They have concerts and everything else there.
Really cool stuff. Let's get to Staten Island. We haven't been there yet. They have the Lighthouse Museum there, correct?
Yeah, and you may not think Staten Island, you think, oh, lighthouses. But actually, the Lighthouse Museum was once a federal lighthouse depot. It's where they kept the lenses and the fuel and the anchors and all the supplies for the entire East Coast.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so they actually had a national competition to figure out where they're going to put the National Lighthouse Museum, and Staten Island won. And that's why it's there. So it's not only a great place to kind of, see a lighthouse and kind of the grounds, but it also has a whole history of lighthouses going back to ancient Egypt. It has models, very cute little models of dozens of lighthouses all across the world. And the best part, of course, of the Lighthouse Museum is you can go on lighthouse tours. They get guided boat tours around New York City to see various lighthouses.
Very cool. You're a wealth of information, I got to tell you. That's great.
I know.
Yeah. I want to thank all of our guests. Shelly Kramer, the Director of Operations at Spyscape, Ariel Plotek, Chief Curator of the Museum of Sex, and Tim Keogh from Queensborough Community College. Thank you all. And thank you for joining us. Now, get out there and do your own museum crawl. You might be surprised at some of the fun and unique stuff that you'll uncover and experience. I'm Mike Gilliam. We'll see you next time on A Slice of New York.